she is here to speak on a powerful, powerful message, which is she is declaring fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. And I absolutely love her and honor her time for being here. And I'm just going to open it up. Hi, Theresa. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Elena. And wow, I've been watching all morning and the speakers have just been phenomenal.
Thank you so much. We've got just such a variety, like a variety of stories and experience, and we're just here to touch on it all to serve and give people hope. So tell us a little bit about what declaring fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction means to you. And I first want to say, I'm sharing love and light with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, fentanyl was a pharmaceutical name that I was unfamiliar with. I became familiar with it after I lost my son to fentanyl poisoning on May 12th of 2020. And when that happened, it was, my world came crumbling down and I was in search of answers. How did this happen? How I am an alert mother, an aware mother, a loving mother. I provided my kids everything and guided them along the way. Although it was hard to see them stumble and fall on occasion, I was always there and present. How did this happen? It took me a couple weeks to dig myself out of a hole enough to try to find answers. I'm sure I knew I wasn't alone, but who could I seek that could help answer some of the questions? Most of my questions will forever go unanswered. I know that. But I needed to know what took my son's life. Initially, I was very timid on being transparent and truthful and open. I wasn't sure at the time. Again, this plagued our community. It had been going on for a while, but this had hit my front doorstep very suddenly. So I reached out to who are now some very good friends of mine who are currently in recovery, and I sat down with them. They helped answer questions, primarily reassuring me that this was not a parental failure of mine. This was nothing that I could have seen coming or prevented. And so at that point, I thought, okay, if this blindsided me out of nowhere, there are other families that this is happening to. Mm-hmm. So I made a promise to myself that although I lost someone, one of the very most important people in my life, I was not going to let this loss change who I was and what I stand for. And I just made it a mission to help support other families who are walking in these same shoes as me now. And this crisis is still happening each and every day.
Wow. Number one, thank you for sharing that with us. And, it is one of those things that I think happens in a lot of areas is, it's out there, like on all kinds of things, like, it's out there, but it's not really gonna impact me because that's all out there. How did you begin tracking down the support system? Like for somebody that's maybe going through an excruciating trauma, there could be any type of trauma, but never thought it would reach home. How did you even begin to find the connections, the support systems?
I think I was blessed in this category because I am one of the founding leaders of a local advocacy group called JAVA. And JAVA stands for Justice, Accountability, and Victim Advocacy. And so for years, we have supported and focused on homicide families, victims, families that have lost loved ones to homicide. My family was personally impacted, and I felt that that also was a mission that not really many people were talking about, and families needed support. So I supported families from day one, not knowing the pain, not knowing I had never lost a child at that point, I was just coming from a place of empathy, a place of compassion, and just, as a mom, I couldn't imagine. And so I wanted to be the support for them and pray with them and just sit in silence with them if that's what it took to help them. And then when the tables turned and I lost my son, those same families that I once supported over the years just came. It was an army of support that I had. And it was something that, they carried me. They carried me through the funeral planning, through the loss of a child, through everything that they had experienced. And they fueled me with their strength. And so as part of our advocacy, we branched off and I started making it a personal focus and mission of my own to support families that have lost to fentanyl poisoning. So it wasn't really hard to find. Facebook has everything. It has a lot of tools, a lot of groups. I found that on a global level, this is happening everywhere. Wow. I linked up with a group called Lost Voices of Fentanyl and was able to read stories. There's parents that have lost not one, not two, multiple children to this poison. And so I wanted to do everything I could to bring awareness. As part of that, we traveled to Washington, D.C. last year. I'd never been to Washington, D.C. before. It was a very quick trip. But my goal was to rally with these other parents and just make those one-on-one connections with people that I've been connecting with online, but I could have the opportunity to meet them in person. And so we all rallied together. The rally took place right in front of the Chinese embassy because the fentanyl that is killing our children is not coming from a prescription or a pill bottle. It's being made and manufactured in China. And the Mexican cartel plays a big part in getting it trafficked into our country. And so I realized very quickly that I'm up against a beast, and this is a weapon of mass destruction. Its only purpose is to destruct and destroy families here in the United States. So I plan on going again. The next rally is scheduled for this coming September. This time we will be rallying right in front of the White House. And so we've, again, we lose lives daily. So the numbers of families that will be there this year as compared to last year, it's going to double, if not triple. That's just my own personal guesstimate. But just seeing these Facebook groups just blow up with every day. I lost a loved one. I lost a child. I lost a parent. It's happening. You're not immune. And one of my biggest regrets is thinking that something like this could never happen to my family or take the life of my own son.
Wow. And I think a lot of people believe that. I think a lot of people, do believe that. Have you, and I'm just curious because again, we haven't really been able to talk about, so these are genuine questions that I'm wanting to know, like, have you found, is most of the help and support and research provided and all of that sort of thing, is it coming more from the families and the people that have experienced it and have created it? Or is there anything that like our government provides? Like, is this just more of us as people needing to say, this is not okay, and we've got to get more out there about it? Or are there like things that have been created? Do they see this as a problem?
Well, I can tell you that the awareness piece is coming from the army of families that have been impacted. So there's still some families that aren't able to speak and be transparent with their pain, but there are others who want to bring that purpose. We don't want any other lives to be taken by this lethal drug. So yes, families are the driving force to why you hear about it now on the news. When this happened to my son, I hadn't heard an episode, Dr. Phil was just talking about it the other day. I was a stranger to it. And I think the driving force, like I said, is are the families, are the mothers and the fathers who are down deep in the trenches, who have lived this, who know, and who are able to draw the strength from within and from God to just help spread the word. You know, we have voices and we are the voices for our children. And I truly believe that my son is with me every step of the way. In his life, he brought friends to me that maybe he thought needed support and help. He doesn't fail me even while he lives far away in heaven. He is still bringing people. I cross paths daily. I talk about him at the grocery store. I talk about him every day in random areas of my life. And as far as the government, I don't think they're taking it as seriously as they should. This isn't a political issue, and that is what it has become. It's not a red or a blue sided issue. It's a red, white, and blue. We all bleed the same and we all hurt the same, and our children have all been taken in the same manner. So it is starting to get some attention. I actually, our Congressman, Jim Banks for the state of Indiana, had mentioned my name and my story on his page a year or so ago. So out of curiosity, I reached out to his team and just wanted to meet him. And life happens, and I kind of lost track of that need, although it was still in the back of my mind. I was contacted by his office a few weeks ago, and they want to do a sit down and they want to do a press conference about this. And I mentioned that I was going to be in Washington, D.C. in September. They knew all about the rally, and we're in the early stages of planning that press conference and that one-on-one engagement so that I can understand from a political perspective what has been done, what can be done, and what will be done. You know, every day we're losing lives. And so something has got to happen, whether it turns into a border crisis dilemma, so be it. It needs to stop.
Wow, that's amazing. Just congratulations on using your voice and turning that pain into a power source. I believe he's working through you to bring awareness around this. Have you found, and I know from the outside, there's been times where I've seen posts of yours, and I know sometimes people can be cruel. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. People can be cruel. Do you think there's still a stigma around people like almost disregarding because it's like, well, they asked for it, or they, if they were choosing that route, then do you think that they have this judgment already based in them? Because there's been times where I know I've seen things where I'm like, I don't even know who this person is, but I want to reach through and beat their, what. Have you run into that?
I have. I too used to be a stranger to addiction. And when this very first happened, I would have never labeled my son an addict. And it was and the only reason I kind of disagree with what I once said before is because I was uneducated as to what addiction really was and where it stems from and how powerful it is. And although whether or not my son was an addict, it really is, someone that spoke earlier mentioned mental health. It's all connected. There are loved ones that have lost their lives that were addicts. There are loved ones that lost their lives, and it was the first experiment with something that they just wanted. Maybe they had anxiety, or maybe they had an exam that they needed to study for. Maybe they just had a recent breakup or a loss of another loved one. My son had gone through a lot of traumatic events in his young life. He passed away at 23, and he was not immune to losses. And I believe just trying to self-medicate, I think, is really what ultimately took his life. And so I have had those comments where, they made a choice and that's what took their life. I agree with that. He did make a choice that day, but in that choice, he did not deserve to die. He did not intend to die. I mean, he was a father. He has he left behind a son. And the day my grandson was born was the best day of my son's life. And, you know, we shared goals and dreams, and he was way much more than that, the few grains of fentanyl that took his life. So yes, to those individuals, you know, I just kind of, they too are uneducated, and maybe they have not experienced something so traumatic in their own lives to where, you know, I do not wish this on anyone, but it is not anyone's place to judge another. And I think with addiction and it being so strong and prominent in our community and in our nation, I just think coming from a place of love and understanding is what needs to happen versus ridicule and judgment as to what could have happened. All of us have a hindsight, woulda, coulda, shoulda. You don't have to tell me what my son should have done or could have done differently, but this is what I'm left with. And so I just, as nicely as I can, you know, respond back and just let them know that this is a poison that is being trafficked into our country, and it is in all street drugs. So recreational drug use is a thing of the past. So it can happen in someone's very first experience. So to those commenters, you know, I just make sure that I speak my mind and just hope that this never happens to somebody that they love.
Love that. So when you mentioned that it had taken you a couple weeks and then you knew you had to do something, what do you tell the other mom that doesn't think that she can go on, that doesn't think that she can take another breath with this pain? Because, you know, loss is loss, but there are, I still believe, different, you know, we just experience it all different. But for that mom that almost doesn't see a reason to want to take another breath for herself, what kind of hope do you give her today?
The most important.
And before I want to again thank you for being here, because I know this is not easy, and I didn't know where the conversation was going to go, you know, but the service you are providing right now for someone is amazing. And that's why I asked that question. There could be somebody watching that just doesn't believe she can get through this.
Mm-hmm. Well, the most important thing I would say is that we as individuals are not meant to carry these things alone in silence. The biggest impact for me was my support system. And it was, you know, even the women that have meant the most to me over the last couple of years are not doctors, they're not experts, they're not clinicians, they speak from experience. And that is what I do as well, you know, making sure that they know you are not alone. And even just the few words that I have to share with them, sometimes words aren't even necessary, just a look. And that's all it takes to open that door. And I received a lot of messages over the years where people tell me that they draw their strength from me, that they would not be able to do what they do if it wasn't for the inspiration that they've watched me early on. And you know, it's one of those things where I share, the more you share, the easier it gets. You know, the fact that I can sit here with you and you know, have my box of Kleenex next to me, but I can speak from knowing that I survived the day that could have very well destroyed me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't, and I'm here. And so that's what I want to just reach down in that hole and grab a hold of that hand of that parent or sister or anyone that is struggling, and just let them know, you know, hold my hand. I've been here before. I know how to get us out. Let's do it together.
It's beautiful. And if that is not a servant heart, I don't know what is, girl.
Thank you.
And I have to say, I think it's been about a year ago when you were talking about starting to get in that place of speaking on this. And so where you have come and how far you have come through, to me, I honor you for that, because I've seen it, I've watched it, I've felt your pain. My love for you goes deep, and I can't imagine. So, when people say, you're strong and you're strong, no, I'm saying you're strong. And I appreciate you coming on here and sharing it. This is definitely something that we as people need to become more aware of and open to discussing, to at least learning about, and not knowing a tiny piece and think we know it all. So I just have to share that. I have watched your journey. I have seen your growth. I have witnessed some of your healing, and I know you're healing every single day.
Every day.
Your whole family is. But every time you share, you get stronger.
That's true. There's a lot of truth behind it. And, I have had countless individuals tell me how strong I am. And when you say that to someone, they probably don't see what you see. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm doing what's necessary. I'm doing what needs to be done. And very early on, I remember just crying out to God, because me and God, we went rounds when this happened, because I remember when my son was still alive, he was going through some things, and I handed, like we're supposed to do, I handed things to God and just said, I can't do this on my own. I need you to step in and drive. And it wasn't shortly thereafter, my son passed away. And I took that as, God, that's not how I meant this to happen. And so I was very angry. And, anger is a stage of grief, but it was beyond that. I felt like God let me down. And it took very long, I guess longer than I care to admit, to actually just build my faith again. And it was in a different way. I've always been faithful. Didn't really grow up in the church, but as an adult, I turned to God because I knew what he could do and how much power he had. And I remember distinctly sitting alone, bawling, just crying out to God, like, why me? Why, why do bad things happen to good people? You hear that all the time, but why? And I can put my hand on the Bible and swear that I could literally hear my son say, why not you, Mom? Who cares enough about people, and who cares enough about this to make a difference and to talk about it? So why not you? And so that alone shifted my thinking. And I thought, you're right. I was born with a voice. I was born with the love for my son and a passion to just help and serve. So why not me? And even though this is the most difficult journey I'll ever have to go down, I feel like it is making a difference. So when people say, you are so strong, I have completely drawn my strength from God and from my support system, who is giant, and just the love of my family and friends. And that's just, I would not be here sitting with you today if it wasn't a compilation of all of those things.
I love it. I love it. And the way, and I do want to bring up the piece where you just said that what you had prayed for, God didn't deliver it in the way that you were hoping. And I remember being in the hospital when my husband had his heart attack. And, we were hearing, words on his brain, words on his body, like just all this stuff. And I remember just praying, like, please restore his brain, and please, renew his spirit, and please, like his mind, just bring it all, like restore everything, renew everything. And in my prayer, it was bring him back whole and healthy and, strong faith. And in that prayer, God was able to provide all that, but only in his kingdom.
Mhm.
He would never be able to have been whole and restored here on earth. So to answer my prayer, it had to happen in only the place, the only he physically could have, like he wouldn't have physically been able to be that here, you know? And so the prayer was answered to me, but not in the way that I thought, you know, not in the way that I envisioned. And, you know, thinking of your son, and if he had those struggles and he had that pain and he had that, you know, God is using him in a way to, through you, to impact and heal and help and encourage and all of those things to a mass of people that he would have never been able to do in another way. I mean, and I know that's not like comforting, but
No.
it's
I feel it. I feel exactly what you're saying. This isn't the way I anticipated my story to be, but this is what I've been left with. This is the life I've been given to lead, and I must do something with it.
So if anybody were to want to learn more, or is there any way for anyone to reach these groups or what you're doing, or even support in the rally? Like if there's anything somebody wants to get more involved, what is their first step? What do you recommend?
I am always willing to talk one-on-one or connect with someone on Facebook so that we can hopefully maybe set up a lunch date. We have here locally in Fort Wayne, Indiana, we have an overdose awareness day that is happening on August 27th at 11:30 downtown at the Allen County Courthouse lawn. It's going to be a big event just honoring not only those that we've lost, but also those who are still struggling with addictions and just needing resources. We'll have Narcan available, which again, Narcan is something that I didn't know even existed, and now I carry it with me everywhere I go, just in case. So get involved, reach out to me on Facebook. I always share stories that cross my page that have to do with other families and other causes, other events. I will be going live while I'm in Washington directly from my page. So if you're curious, that will be on September 17th. And I'll just live stream from my page majority of the time, providing that my phone cooperates with me.
Right.
But yeah, just connect with me. If you know someone that has been impacted by fentanyl poisoning, then I would love to engage in conversation and just talk about what you're doing, because you might be doing something that I've not even encountered yet, or you might be able to connect me with other families who are still deep in that hole and do not see their way out. So connect with me on Facebook. That's my primary source for social media. And then I also often share the other groups that I'm affiliated with as well.
From there. Okay, wonderful. So yeah, if anybody's tuning in and watching, you know, to get to Theresa, if you want to even just ask me who was the person, maybe you caught this midway, I can make that connection for you as well. Theresa, thank you so much. Thank
you for having me.
I'm just happy that you were here. So enjoy your day and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.